All right. Good afternoon, cuties, and welcome to Cutie Connect Cafe, where we tell stories about everything queer and tech. I'm Naufal, co-founder at QueerTech and your host. QueerTech is based in Tehuantepec in Montreal, and I would like to begin by acknowledging that QueerTech is located on the unceded Indigenous land. The Kanien'kehá:ka Nation is recognized as the custodians of the land and the water in which we gather today. As usual, before we get started, I would like to thank our annual sponsors and QT Connect sponsors, partners, who have been supporting us this year. I would like to thank Sage, Unity Technologies, Ubisoft, VanHack, PaySafe, and Local Logic. As you know, it's been really great. You might know in April we had our job fair that was very successful. A lot of people have joined, and we launched our job board. So for those of you who are looking for jobs or careers in tech, or looking to advance their career in tech, you can check our job board at queertech.org/job. queertech.org/jobs. There is over 2,000 jobs on there. So go there, check it out, and connect with our partners. And for those who love what we do and want to support us, you can donate on our website, queertech.org. Thank you so much for your support. And I also want to thank all the donors and people who support QueerTech every month. Even a $5, a $10 a month goes a long way. So thank you so much for your support. Before we get started with our guest today, for those who have any questions or comments during this live stream, you can write your questions or comments on the comment box on the social media network that you're watching us on. You can also tag anyone who's looking for a job in tech or looking to advance their career in tech, or even looking for inspiration on motivation. I know we all can use it this day. So please be aware that we might be showing your comments or live stream on the video. So, really excited for our guest today. Lisa is a manager of regulatory R&D at Wealthsimple, working primarily on new financial products. She's formerly co-chair and advisor with Venture Out, but is now founding board director with Gradient Spaces. She's also a board member with Ample Labs, an amazing organization building tech to tackle homelessness. I'm really excited because Lisa and I know each other for a few years now, and she does amazing work for the community, and I'm really, really excited to have her join us. So welcome, Lisa, to the show. You may reveal yourself now. Lisa, don't you love that entrance? You know,
yeah, that was fantastic. Thank you. Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Oh, I'm okay. I'm excited to be here, and yeah, excited to hang with you over lunch.
Yeah, thank you so much, and welcome to QT Connect Cafe. I was really excited to have you on board and catch up over the hour and talk about all the amazing things that you've done for the community and you do. So, so let's, before we kind of dive into the topic, love to kind of start with telling us a little bit about yourself and what are your pronouns?
Sure. My pronouns are she, her. In addition to what you mentioned in my intro, I grew up in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. I currently live in Toronto, and I'm sure we'll get into the details of most of this later, but I'm very excited to be one of the newer team members at Wealthsimple, part of their Rainbow ERG, which is really exciting. It was I think my first, maybe second Slack message after, launching Wealthsimple Slack for the first time was someone from the Rainbow ERG, Breton, to pull me into that group. So it was really nice and welcoming.
Yeah.
So I love it. And I'm also on the board of Ample Labs, Wanted to spotlight them. They're doing amazing work using AI and data science to intervene in the cycle of homelessness and helping cities provide more accessible support to folks experiencing homelessness. And yeah, definitely wanted to early on spotlight Gradient Spaces, which I'm sort of soft launching casually in this chat because they haven't formally launched yet, but their website is live, and I'm very proud to be able to say that. So gradientspaces.ca. And the main reason I wanted to bring it up early is just to make sure I didn't forget to let folks know that they are looking for new volunteers to join the team in a variety of capacities, different roles, different time commitments. So they would love to hear from you, and info on how to reach out and chat about volunteering is on the website.
Something I love about you, even when you have the moment to talk about yourself, you're trying to help other organizations. I'm giving all the announcements as usual.
I'm horrible with icebreakers, and like one of my most feared questions is like, tell me a fun fact about yourself on the spot. I have nothing. There's none. So I have no idea.
I could not ask you this question today.
Yeah, so I just defer to other things that are very exciting and interesting. Yeah.
No, I was really, we've met 2-3 years ago, maybe through Venture Out, and you hosted the conference and it was amazing. And I was really excited when I saw that you joined Wealthsimple team, and I'm excited to talk more about Wealthsimple. I use Wealthsimple. I really like the team. I connected with Sonam a couple of years ago, and so it's great to see how the company have evolved and grown. And congratulations on the big round that you just closed.
Yeah, really exciting week. Yeah,
it's really, really exciting week. So let's go back to the beginning.
Sure.
When Lisa was born, you mentioned you were born and grew up in Ontario. Tell us a little bit more about just where you started your life. Where did you go to high school, university, and yeah.
Oh, okay. You're gonna make me. No, I'm kidding. Well, I mean, technically, I was born in Thornhill, so not far from where I live now, but moved around quite a bit for the first 8 or so years, and then moved to Sault Ste. Marie, which is in Northern Ontario, and stayed there until I moved away to school. So I went to public high school there.
From Toronto, just to give
Sault Ste. Marie. Good question. Well, about 7-hour drive from Toronto on a good day.
Okay.
But once Porter came to Sault Ste. Marie, which I'm not going to pretend to remember the exact year, which was a big deal. Porter Airlines started flying to the Sault, so then it's about an hour when you can go around the lake.
So you're like pretty much up in Ontario. So okay, that's good. For those who are not from Ontario, this is very helpful.
Yeah, a little bit of context. Yeah, it's a bit of a hike. Growing up in Sault Ste. Marie, coming to Toronto, I think I'm sure I came a few times, but it was a really big deal to come to the big city. And I mean, I'll mention this, I guess, later in chronological order, but I did eventually move to Toronto for law school, and it was really overwhelming. Actually, I was nervous about moving to the big city.
Yeah.
Now it, feels more like home and it's comfortable. But after high school, I first moved to London, Ontario, which is about 2 hours west of Toronto.
Yeah.
And went to the University of Western Ontario for medical science. Definitely thought I was going to be a doctor and studied that. Realized about halfway through that I had no interest in being a doctor that had to deal with people all day. I don't know if there's something I just missed what that actually looked like day to day.
Yeah.
And figured out what else I could do. I ended up finishing the degree. I did my honors thesis in exercise physiology and the oxygenation of respiratory muscles, already knowing that I probably wasn't going to pursue that any further, and ended up applying to law school and getting into Osgood. So that was a big move, and moved to York campus first, and then moved downtown about halfway through my degree. Graduated 2014. And then, post-law school is a bit of a messy time. We can kind of get into the details if it's helpful in my path towards tech. But definitely did not follow any sort of traditional or kind of standard plan post-law school, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that, right? I think a lot of people think that if you even become a doctor or you do law school, that there is a linear trajectory of becoming, a lawyer. You start, you're an associate, you're senior associate, become a partner. That's what you do.
Right.
There's so many other options, and I'm excited to talk to you about it. So I'm curious. So you started medical school. What was the trigger to switch to law? Why law? Was there someone or a group of people that helped you through that process?
I have always sort of struggled with this question. I don't have a really inspiring reason for what brought me to law school. I wish I did. Like I guess I realized early on that as much as I was interested in studying science and medicine, it was not what I wanted my entire career to be based on. So my approach at that point was just to take a bunch of random electives at university and try to figure it out. And I was lucky enough to be able to fit in some courses that were not at all related to medicine, including the philosophy of law and philosophy of logic. And I was very into the philosophy of logic course. It was kind of exactly up my alley, and apparently was, a big focus of the LSAT. So I decided almost on a whim to just write the LSAT, because a lot of the questions reminded me of those like activity books that I used to do on road trips, where it's like Bob is taller than Fred and Fred is shorter than Steve, then like how tall is Mark, like those kinds of things. And I would do those for fun all the time. And I mean, I'm obviously simplifying it by a long shot, but that's sort of the theme of the LSAT. And so I decided to just go for it and kind of see what happened. And that, just kind of put me on this path towards actually studying law. And then, jumped in and committed to it, of course, as a student. So it wasn't necessarily that I had it in the back of my mind or that I had this long-term plan of becoming a lawyer. Or to be completely honest, in hindsight, that I had any idea what actually practicing law looked like other than what I saw on TV. And I think that's often the case. I think a lot of law students, unless they have lawyers in their family or have dealt with lawyers, they sort of picture litigation as like the primary role of a lawyer. And that's actually such a small part of it.
Because all the TV shows you watch, it's like people in court, and it's criminal law, and that's like where you.
It's very exciting. It's very intense. Like there is that. That's it. That is a part of it, but it's not the only or primary thing.
I love that. I think like it's really important to, and this is why we do QG Connects and talk about people's career path, because I think most of people don't have a linear career path. Most of people, I mean, probably 80-90%, and I'm just throwing a number there, but just from friends and people I know around me, had an idea what they wanted to do in university and end up doing nothing of that, right? And because, as we grow up, you're like, where you want to be, and like, it's great to look into the future, but as we do it, right, like you learn and you change, and your aspirations and ambition and dreams change, right? And that's completely okay, right? Like career is not also that linear path that everyone make it to be. And I think it's also okay to try things. And I think a lot of people in the 20s, it's all about trying different jobs and then figuring out what you like and then getting to that path. So when you were in law school, did you want it to be a lawyer or no? Did you have an idea? Were you like saying, okay, I'm doing this, I'm going to be a lawyer, or no?
With the privilege of hindsight, I think I can say that at some point, the reality of the debt that I had taken on to do law school sunk in, and was very scary. And I think that became a motivating factor for me for a little while. I decided to try to go down the somewhat more traditional route and get a well-paying job. I can't genuinely say it was out of interest in those roles as much as how am I going to ever pay this debt off if I don't immediately have a well-paying job? And unfortunately, I did not have early on. I did eventually sort of figure out the whole law school thing, but early on, I did not have grades competitive enough to, have any sort of choice in the kind of job I had. And that's sort of scary because the way that law school jobs are structured, if you want to end up on Bay Street, a lot of that starts right out of first semester. You can absolutely enter at any point in the process and later on in later years, but it starts very early on. And that can be overwhelming if you're not kind of immediately part of that successful path, the successful path that they sort of push on you. So I honestly, like now thinking back, I don't really know what I was hoping for as much as I knew I had to figure something out, or I would just be so anxious and stressed about paying off debt that I wouldn't be able to figure anything out. Eventually, so I graduated and I did the law practice program for a variety of reasons. One, it was accessible to me and available that year. And two, they had a lot of health law related programs that are hard to get articling roles for. So I ended up working for eHealth and the Ministry of Health right out of law school. And then that led me to an internship at the World Health Organization in Geneva, which was amazing because Switzerland. But also quite expensive and unpaid. And I came back from that with absolutely no plan. And I worked as a server. I had worked as a server throughout undergrad for many years. So I picked up a couple of roles as a server, which I was grateful to be able to have that experience, because in Toronto, it's actually very hard to get a job as a server if you don't have experience already.
Wow.
So I did that for a while, and I did a few different contracts. I did minute taking for condo boards. I just filled my time with any experience that I was able to get, really. And then luckily, I was able to turn some previous experience I had had during law school as a student at Parkdale Legal Clinic into a contract as a housing rights lawyer at a legal clinic here in Toronto, which was something I was comfortable with. I had experience in, and it was amazing. But yeah, none of that was planned. And I don't, I'm grateful for all of it. I think however you get wherever you go is valid. And I learned something in every single role that I had, but it was stressful because it didn't feel like what I was supposed to be doing. And yeah, I had, debt to pay and rent to pay. And it was a weird couple of years for sure.
Yeah. Isn't it interesting? We are all conditioned, right? We're supposed to be somewhere and do something by a certain age. And that concept gotta change, like that just puts so much unnecessary pressure on people. I think everyone can perform at its best. And, some people have a career and they want to be productive and they want to be successful, but other people don't, right? But we live in this society that's everyone just like competing, and it's like, you're supposed to be, you're 30 and you don't have a career, and now you're 32 and you don't have a career, and like, why don't you be in a relationship, and why don't you have kids, and why don't you have a home, and why don't you have a car? And it's like, that needs to break, right?
For
like
sure.
that needs to go away, and it's okay to take your time to figure out that path.
Well, no, I think that's a great point. I think we define successful in this way that suggests that that's the same for everyone. Like, you make a lot of money or something, like we talk about success like it's some sort of expected kind of path that's applicable to everyone. But I just think that it's so much more complex than that. But we don't talk about that enough, especially, in school, in high school. You meet guidance counselors in high school that just help you pick a university program, but we don't talk about sort of the bigger picture, and what all of that is actually going to mean for your life and for what you spend your time doing, and what matters to you, like why you're doing it. There's a lot of pressure that I think just distracts us from what will actually be successful for us.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it does. It takes a lot of time, I think. And
and I love also, like, part of your, one of the things you've done is go live abroad and have a work experience abroad. I was lucky to do that also in a couple of countries, and I just can't stop recommending that to anyone who is early on in your career, and go and do it. Take that time off, live in somewhere where you learn about a new culture, a new way of work, and you discover yourself. You discover so much about yourself going to that. So talk us, and tell us a little bit, how did you get that job? How long were you in Switzerland, and maybe what was the impact of that on you?
It was a fluke. I mean, those internships are famously challenging to get. They're competitive, and there aren't actually that many, considering the sort of global nature of the World Health Organization. I had thrown my name on just a general application list about 8 months, I think, before I actually got an email from someone working in the pandemic preparedness office, which is where I ended up working in 2015. And it happened to be really good timing. I was just finishing up my placement. I was still very interested. I, again, had really no plans after my placement, and so it fit. I'll fully acknowledge up front that, I was already in quite a bit of debt myself, and at the time it just felt like meaningless in a way, and I just piled on top of it to go to Switzerland. But that's a privilege to be able to have an unpaid internship experience, which we can talk about that for a while. And we did have some organized kind of protests against having unpaid internships as a stepping stone to a career with the UN or WHO, because it's not accessible and it's not an equitable way to do it. A lot of folks there, I will say, were on scholarship from university, so they had most of their expenses paid. But for anyone else, it's extremely burdensome to ask them of that. But beyond that, having the ability to go was, oh my gosh, it was absolutely amazing. Not just because of the work that I was doing, even though it was interesting. I met people from all over the world that I would never have had the opportunity to meet and actually, get to know and work with and talk through really interesting challenges with, and travel with. We traveled all the time together, and you really built like pretty intense, quick friendships I was there for 3 months and a little bit. And you just become very close for those 3 months. So what I'm most grateful for, like traveling, sure. It's amazing to be able to travel. But it was the people that I was able to really meet and work with that was just a once in a lifetime opportunity for me, I think. But I would love to be able to do it again.
That's amazing. No, I definitely think these are like life-changing experiences, and if someone can do that's wonderful. I want to come back to a little bit your upbringing, going to high school, university, and before we jump into your professional career, were there any pivotal moments in your life before you started working that really, I want to talk about your career journey in here, right? And if there were any pivotal moment in there that you can share with us, that either have helped you in your decision with your career, how did you reconcile that as you went to school and get ready for the job market?
Sure. So my career journey, really no awareness at all in high school, really. Sault Ste. Marie at the time did not have a prominent queer scene, still doesn't per se. And in undergrad, I suppose I could break this down into sort of 3 phases in a sense. In undergrad, I was, watching the L Word on volume 1 or with headphones, and convincing myself that I was obsessed with it just because it was just such quality television, which it was not. But still absolutely like not dealing with anything. Law school is where I met so many, brilliant, lovely people, of course, and one group of event volunteers, I guess, is sort of how I met them and got involved. I guess that's a recurring theme. But this one particular group just happened to be predominantly queer folks, and I got to know them and work with them on events. And that I guess I could pinpoint as a way for me to help figure out that I was also queer. And then became more engaged with the law students. They were called Outlaws, the law student queer group at Osgoode, and then volunteering after law school. And then in terms of impact on my career, I think, the final phase, I suppose, of my queer journey is volunteering with Venture Out. And I guess you could say transitioning into a professional queer. And you know what I mean by being very public, I guess, about the intersection of being queer and at work. And so I guess I wouldn't say it impacted my career journey per se in a direct way, but my life definitely changed as a result of volunteering for Venture Out in a great way. I started thinking about being queer and being queer at work as almost a responsibility to create a better experience and a safer experience for folks, younger or in a different place in their queer journey, and making sure that we are always working to, create a better society, a more inclusive and accessible and accepting society. And so I think the values that I was looking for out of a workplace, and what mattered to me about where I worked and the type of work they were doing and how they talked about inclusion and in every way, I think that's what impacted me the most, as opposed to the sort of day-to-day work that I was doing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really interesting because I think for me, queer tech also have had that impact where, I was always, for the biggest part of my career after I left Morocco, I was, out at work, but queer tech have also put in perspective of what does that really mean and what's my role in, being out as a gay man and what impact that means and what does it mean to also talk about it in public and how does that impact, other people who are maybe not out and they would like to, but not sure how to do it. And I love that. I think being part of communities and organization also empowers sometimes, the individuals to feel part of that community and feel empowered to come out and to share that. Thank you for sharing that part. That was wonderful. So we'll kind of move and talk a little bit about your professional career and so after university, it sounds like you've done internships, you've done you were a server and kind of slowly. So walk us on the path. How did you end up at Wealthsimple? What was the different jobs you had? And
So I was working as a housing rights lawyer at a legal clinic on contract. And I was sort of looking for potential opportunities because you're never quite sure if your contracts are going to be extended under legal aid contracts. And I came across this really intriguing opportunity to join a very new legal technology startup as a legal analyst. So at the time had very little experience in the startup world, but leaning on my legal experience, I was able to get that role and jump into this startup as their first full-time hire, a very small team. And so that was my first experience in tech at all, really. And I just fell in love with the startup community here in Toronto, and fell in love with the sort of chaos and uncertainty of really, the startup life, startup roles. I met, I guess it was right around that same time that I started volunteering with Venture Out instead of Start Proud, from transitioning from law to startups in tech. And so I just became very engaged and just loved every minute of getting to know the queer tech scene and the startup scene, and the many opportunities that I had absolutely no idea even really existed. And as I think you mentioned earlier, the many roles that exist in tech that are not, tech skills, I think, in the way that we often sort of talk about them.
Yeah.
And then after the startup, I was offered a role at BMO Capital Markets doing regulatory compliance in their anti-money laundering group. So just a complete, sideways tangent from what I was doing before. But and again, an entire sector of roles that I didn't even know existed in law school. Regulatory compliance, regulatory operations, very legal focused. It's a very legal.
Can you tell her what does that mean?
Yeah, because that carries into my Wealthsimple role as well. So, in any highly regulated sector, so for me, banking and financial services, there are many complex regulatory requirements that the company has to meet, especially a global company like BMO. But even, here in Canada, domestic fintechs, there are a lot of regulations that they have to comply with. And that's it, it's challenging and complicated work to monitor and manage all of the controls and the tasks that the entity has to do to be compliant, and to manage audits by regulators, and to ensure that we're working with the business to create a program that is efficient while also being compliant. So it's a lot of legal interpretation, figuring out what the requirements mean, what that means for our customer experience, and then ensuring that we're performing all of those things properly to keep our products safe. So I was doing that in a very anti-money laundering lens at BMO, but that skill set carries into my role at Wealthsimple, which is more, as mentioned, R&D, research and development. So it's more focused on new products, starting to work, compliance as a consideration into, the very early stages of a new product idea or a new product feature. And I think it's such an interesting area to be in right now, especially because the financial sector in Canada and globally is changing so quickly, and the regulatory requirements are changing so quickly. So there is a lot to be paying attention to. But I also think it's interesting because we often talk about, we put our customers first, and as most companies do. And I think we usually think about that in the sense of customer experience and customer success and, user experience. And all of that is, of course, entirely true. But if you're really prioritizing your customers, you're also prioritizing the safety and reliability of your products, especially when you're talking about financial products. And so, customer experience holistically includes the compliance team, sitting behind the scenes, making sure that our products are safe and can be, trusted and are compliant with all of the regulations. So it's a really interesting space, I find, a really interesting space to be working in. And it's also fun because we get to often, take a position of advocating on behalf of our customers when it comes to, public policy for sort of how our sector is going to evolve to incorporate new things like crypto. We have a really interesting opportunity being so close to a lot of our, to our clients and to, their expectations to represent, hopefully, to represent sort of their interests at the table as much as we can.
Absolutely. I have a million questions. This is great. No, I love it because I think, it's really important to start showcasing that there is more to tech than just a programming job.
Yes.
And even programmer, you don't have to go to university and do 4 years and be engineer to be a programmer. There is so many non-traditional paths to get into tech. And for in your perfect example, going to law school and coming to work at a tech company is also a very, valid career path. And I know a lot of people who work at different law firms, sometimes, they come to CareerTech events and we talk to them and I'm like, yeah, there is a path to a lot of companies. And maybe tech needs more lawyers than they would think.
I don't know if everyone would agree with you on that one, but I think so. No.
Just because I think I see a lot of these like crypto startups, for example, right? and so I'm like, there is so much regulation that you need to comply with and understand. And you're a founder that comes from a programming background. You're not going to understand all the regulations and what you need to do. So those are some of my thoughts there. I'm going to step from the role and just I want to talk. Can you tell us, Wealthsimple, what's the company do? Maybe some people are not familiar.
Sure. I see the website popping up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I should have probably asked my comms director for the statement. So I apologize in advance, Rachel. We are a company building, accessible, more innovative financial products. And we started, most people would probably recognize our Invest product. We started with, get rich slow. And it's a very easy product to use. And I've been a customer long before I joined the team. And my favorite part about it is that I could just forget that I even had this account, and I can trust that it's being well managed without me remembering to do anything. We've expanded since, and we are looking to improve the trading experience for more hands-on direct trading, but again, in a way that seeks to be informative and educational for our consumers and hands-on customer support to answer questions. We have a tax product that is pay what you can and, hopefully very easy to use to walk you through how to file your taxes. We have the Wealthsimple Foundation, which is a relatively new in the Wealthsimple journey, nonprofit dedicated to increasing educational grant opportunities for families that are saving for their children's education and RESPs. So I'm skipping parts of it, and I mean I focus mostly on our crypto product these days. But overall, our purpose is to democratize access to financial products to everyone. No matter what your net wealth may be or your income may be, you can help kind of start that financial journey.
Yeah, absolutely. I started using Wealthsimple also about 5 years ago, and I do love the simplicity of using it. And the UI. I also have Wealthsimple Trade, Wealthsimple Cash. These are all also very, very, very well thought out products, and I do love the brand. It's great. And so, tell us a little bit. Were you, before you left BMO and you were starting to think about tech and your interest, was there criteria that you thought about, this is the type of tech company I want to work for? I don't know, diversity and inclusion part of it, being involved in this area, we become very sensitive to it, right? And we think a lot about it. Venture Out was a great conference that bring that reflection and create that space for people to connect and talk about that. And so as organizers of these spaces, we think a lot about that. So I'm curious, how did you decide about Wealthsimple, or just in that journey, was there any...
What was I thinking about? Yeah, no, I think that's a good question. I mean, a part of me, I think, did value the fact that Wealthsimple had been engaged as a sponsor with Venture Out previously. I know they were a sponsor for Queer Tech recently. Demonstrating community engagement and commitment to community and encouraging employees to be engaged with community is absolutely something that I think about. My now boss actually reached out to me to chat about potential opportunities at Wealthsimple. So that also made it feel much more, welcoming and sort of a little bit more comfortable than sort of putting yourself out there. I found this year, well, I guess now it's more than a year, this whole year that we've experienced, I found it even more challenging than usual, I think, to even think about making a move, like a career move, and applying to jobs and kind of trying to position yourself confidently as like a competent human. I found it even harder this year than it usually is, because everything was just so resilience levels were low and exhaustion was high, and just the world was messy and scary. So I honestly don't know if I would have made the jump to Wealthsimple if it hadn't felt, sort of invited, into the opportunity. And it was still, quite a lengthy interview process, but it was fantastic in the sense that I got to really meet and speak with a lot of people. But yeah, I mean, back to your kind of original question, I think, especially as I progress through my career and have a little bit more stability there, I really need to make sure that why I am working there and why I'm excited about work is aligned. I really am passionate about what Wealthsimple is trying to do. And I would probably link that into, anyone thinking about making a move either into kind of tech as sort of a broad term, or making a move anywhere, is, if you have the opportunity to really think through, why you want to work for that company, or why you want to try to solve those problems. What is it that the company is trying to do? And are you excited about that broader mission? Because it should really be like the guiding kind of force, the guiding values, the mission of your day-to-day work. But I think earlier on in your career, it is much harder to be able to stick to that in some ways. Like sometimes you just need to work at a job. And I think that's totally valid. But if you find yourself in a position to be a little bit pickier, I think it's amazing to be able to really dig into why a company does what it does, and how they do it, and what they prioritize, and what they value. And I think it's really important, if you can, to make sure that that aligns with what gets you excited and what you're passionate about. And that can it makes the whole experience just so much better.
Absolutely. And it's really important what you just said. It is a privileged position to be able to pick and select a company you want to work for, but also we have the upper hand today, right? I tell a lot of queer people that are LGBTQ2S people that, there is so many tech companies looking for talent. That's one. It's just, there is so much hiring happening in this industry. We look for so much diverse talent because a lot of the partner we work with, and Wealthsimple was, part of our job fair. And one of the reasons is because there is a value of perspective that our you can bring, and these people can bring, and we sit at this intersection, right, of gender and ethnicity and so much, and sexuality, and like just so much of it, where we have all these rich experiences that you can bring. And so a lot of time I tell people, if you're not happy at a job you're doing, don't take too long to switch, because there is nothing more and hard to do and like than spending 8 hours of your day doing something that you're not passionate for, or that or that you're excited for, and that just brings you down, right? That's very challenging. And so I love that, right? Like, I think starting with a mission of the company, something that you deeply care about, and working for companies who are striving for that mission, it just brings you so close to like the individual who works at those companies are going to also be passionate about it, and that just bring you into that community. And that's really important, that work, it's not anymore just an 9 to 5 or an 8 to 4 and you just go and you do it and you get paid. I think we are evolving to have that luxury of saying, well, I want to have an impact, and I want to work somewhere that has a mission and the values of that company is aligned with. And I think when you find that, it's very refreshing, and it's really exciting to wake up and not just have to think about the tasks you have to do, but like the impact that you have. And I think that's really that's great. So I want to move a little bit and talk about, you spend a lot of your working hours also giving back and volunteering and working at different nonprofits, and so can you tell us a little bit like why? A lot of people feel like they have a job and they can't do other, give back to the community, and I do believe that everyone should contribute somehow. Why do you feel that's important to you?
Oh geez. I'm trying to figure out where to start, or like how to concisely explain like how meaningful all of my community involvement and volunteer experiences have been for me. Probably the least selfless answer I could possibly give to like, why do I volunteer? Is because I learn so much all the time, and I meet amazing people, and I am genuinely a better person because of the communities that I've been grateful to be engaged with, and to, in any capacity, as a board member, as just a day, one day volunteer at an event, or as co-chair of an organization. It's all just such a big part of what motivates me and what inspires me. And it, volunteering with Venture Out over the years, it really, it had like a surprise, like an unexpectedly deep impact on what is important to me, and how I listen, and what questions I ask, and what I think about when I'm in a space, and what I think about when I talk to folks who are earlier in their career who want to chat about, what it's been like for me. All of that and more changed dramatically based on my experience volunteering with the organization. And I can't speak highly enough about it. And I really do see it as just being so lucky. I mean, just like timing wise in my life to, meet the folks that I did when I did, and to have the time and capacity to dedicate sometimes a lot of hours in a week volunteering. And like, I don't take that for granted. There were absolutely periods in my life where if I had, extra evenings free, I was probably trying to work at a restaurant for, and pick up a shift at a restaurant. And it's incredibly, I'm so grateful to have been in a place in my life and in my career to have the time to get to know, the organizations that I did, and get to know the folks that I did, and to be able to, as you said, give back. It really does feel like, you're kind of paying it forward, and there's this certain responsibility as, you know, a somewhat more settled queer person who has a career to talk about, which is very cool. And I didn't, you know, always know if that was going to be the case. And to make it, you know, a little bit more exciting and a little bit more comfortable for other folks. I mean, I had folks reach out to me. I had people, you know, help me through my journey. And I just think there's so much to be gained. And I don't know, I learned something new every time I go to an event, or every time I talk to folks, every board meeting. I'm thinking about new things. I'm asked to think about new things. I'm presented with different experiences. I'm listening to different priorities and values from different folks. And it makes everything else in my life so much richer and so much better. And I don't see it as like, you know, why I don't know how I wouldn't be able to step away from it entirely at this point. It's just like a part of
who you are.
Me. Yeah. It's been so ingrained. Yeah.
And I agree with you. I think a lot of people ask the same questions of, oh, how do you do all that? And I'm like, well, some of you like to go to the gym, and I like to get on my queer check email and help other people. Like, I don't know. There is something about contributing, but I think there is so much we get out of it, right? I find a lot of inspiration, right? Doing this hour talking to you and just hearing you makes my dull week these days just more exciting and inspiring, and to find someone who I can look up to also and say, look at this amazing person and all the works they do, and vice versa, right? Like,
of course, yes.
For that inspiration. And so there is a lot and I always recommend to people, you know, try, and you'll get to learn about other communities that you're not maybe exposed to. There's so much that you can learn. You know, there's so much I want to ask you, but I also cognizant of time, and we're getting close to the time. But before I go into kind of our closing, when I was reading your description, I find that we both share love for penguin, and and I was like, why do you like penguins?
Oh my gosh. If anyone is actually listening to this still, they are probably laughing. They're so awkward.
Yeah.
Like, just tremendously awkward. My favorite penguin phase is, I guess, I don't know if this is the scientific word, but like teenager penguins who are going through penguin puberty, and they become extremely fluffy and then molt and like lose chunks of their fur between being fluffy and cute and then being like the smooth like tuxedo penguin that we all know and love. And that in between phase, it's my favorite. They're like embarrassed and like they hide and they're just like getting through the day, you know, and it's just a phase we all have to go through. And they eventually become all like shiny and slick.
Yeah.
But still just incredibly awkward. I used to think it was because they like had all of these other redeeming qualities, but the more I read about penguins, like they're kind of sneaky and awful in a lot of ways, but I kind of love that too. I mean, you take them as they are. But no, they just, honestly, penguins on Instagram have brought me a lot of joy this year. I really can't undervalue it. Yeah.
That's awesome. You know, they're also very great at having a sense of community and supporting each other. And they're very known for same-sex couples. And,
yes, and they adopt.
and they adopt. And there's so many. I love them also. Lisa, thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you for sharing your story. It's just been tremendous inspiration.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. And you know, I like to share with our audience that, you know, something I learned from you today is resilience. And you don't have to have a direct career path. You don't have to know what you need to do at every moment. That you can go to university and study something that you like today, and you'll figure out a way how to use it in the future. And if you can't, there's so many other career opportunities. And I think that's
absolutely
really important to take away. Also, being involved in community is really important. And either you can give an hour or you can give more. Sometimes contributing also financially. Nonprofits don't have all the funds they need to do everything they want. And so that's also another way people can contribute to. So, thank you so much for giving to the community. The time is probably the most precious thing that we have. And so thank you. Thank you for also being an amazing person.
Oh, well, ditto. And yeah, thank you for having me. It was really lovely. And yes, I see my little handle floating on the screen. I'm happy to chat with anyone who has any questions or wants to chat about career or volunteering or anything like that.
That's great. Also, anyone who's looking for jobs at Wealthsimple, we have them on the job board. So you can go to our job board. You can contact Lisa and ask her also any questions. They have an amazing team there. It's a wonderful company, and I can't enough recommend working for them. And I want to thank all our QT partners for supporting us. Thank you, Sage, Unity Technology, Ubisoft, VanHack, SpaceSafe, and Local Logic for the support. I hope you enjoyed our episode today. Our goal is to tell more and more queer stories through these live streams and through all our social media. We also write blog content around these interviews that you can see on our website. And if you love what we do, and you can recommend also people that we can bring on the show, you can either email me or we sent a newsletter this morning that has a link for the nomination form. Always looking for amazing people that we can bring and share their story. Our next QT Connect Café is on May 20th at noon. I'm really excited to have Marlon Thompson. Marlon is an investor from, he lives in Vancouver. He's a startup founder and experienced advocate in business. And I'm really, really excited to have Marlon share his experience with us and all the amazing work they do. Thank you again so much for staying on and following QT Connect. If you like also what we do, you can support QueerTech by donating on the donate button on queertech.org. And until then, thank you so much. Stay safe and healthy, and talk to you, or I'll see you on May 20th.